Thanks so much for joining me for part 2. So this is, of course, part 2 of my favorite Netflix recommendations, my top 20. I don't know. I like talking about television way too much, so there was, well, also I'm a Libra, so choosing's never easy for me. I always have a hard time with that, so this was already a bad situation. I love TV, and I can't make decisions, so I've, selected 20 titles from Netflix that were my recommendations, plus some bonus extras because, apparently I can't edit. Apparently I can't make any decisions. And it was way too much. So you may have seen part 1. If you haven't, I will link it up there. I'll link it down in the description box. Part 1. This is now part 2 of my top 20 Netflix recommendations. These are in no particular order because I narrowed it down to 20. That was enough for me. My Libra self could not handle or also ranking these shows. Like that would not happen. No way. No way on God's green earth was I'm going to be able to rank these shows. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, okay, let's just go ahead and start. I'm going to jump back in time because I actually filmed this a while ago and then realized this is way too long. I need to cut it into 2 parts. So thanks so much for tuning in. Let's go ahead and get started with some more Netflix recommendations. About shows that are either cable shows or you can find on Netflix original shows, but I actually really like network TV drama. Okay, I really like ABC network television. I personally think Channing Dungey has excellent taste. So I realized that during editing, I didn't do a great job of explaining why I love Channing Dungey so much. So first of all, she is the first African-American president of a major U.S. broadcasting network, and she's a woman. Hello, let's break down all the barriers being a strong, fierce businesswoman. So that's super cool. 2, I was doing a little research, and I actually found out that she is an alumna of the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television, which I was just accepted, well, not just, like last month, or actually a couple months ago. But that is the school that I've decided and accepted that I'm going to be doing my PhD in starting in the fall. Well, I guess I'll still start. I don't know if we're going to be on campus, but that's kind of cool that, she's an alumni and I'm going to be going there for my PhD. Like, that's kind of cool. And then thirdly, the thing I found out is that Channing actually has left ABC. She has now moved to Netflix. So Channing made the move to Netflix in December of 2018. Maybe she actually started working there in January of 2019. I didn't know this because at the time I was taking a business class. It was called the Business of Television Packaging. And my teacher was actually an agent at CAA. And one of his clients was in production or was, we were following her. It's Eva Longoria. I don't know why I'm pretending to be sneaky. My teacher is Eva Longoria's agent, and Eva Longoria had that show Grand Hotel, which only lasted 1 season. It was actually, I kind of enjoyed it. And we were kind of studying and following that show throughout the entire packaging and, pickups, the whole process of a television show going from being picked up to filming the pilot and then, going to upfronts. And at the time, Channing Dungey, in in the spring of 2018, she was the president of ABC. So he was like, oh yeah, I just got off the phone with Channing. And that's how I learned about her and was like, yeah, she's super great. I love her taste. Well, now she's at Netflix. Her role is, I just looked it up, she's the VP of original content at Netflix. And she's going to work really closely because Shonda Rhimes has signed an exclusive deal with Netflix. Ryan Murphy has signed a deal with Netflix. And so it's, I think it's a lot to have to do with Channing. And so I think the reason, because for a while, I was really feeling like Netflix was just sort of it was there, and they were doing so much more original content, but I wasn't really a fan of the original content. Like, I liked the first couple seasons of Orange is the New Black, and then it got a little stale. Anyways, but there have been so many amazing, amazing new Netflix original shows that have come out just even recently. Like, literally, in the last, like, 2 months, there have been so many great shows. And I think a lot of that has to do with Channing, who started there in, I think she signed or, like, made the announcement on, I think I read a Deadline article, in, like, December of 2018 that she was moving over to Netflix. So Channing Dungey is now VP of original content at Netflix, which is 100% the reason that I think Netflix has been killing it. Like, absolutely killing it in the original content, like, field right now. Like, they have been so good. Some of the best work in television, hands down, is coming out of the streaming sites. I mean, Netflix is killing it. Hulu has been really, really, really good recently. They've had a lot of originals that are coming out that are really good. Apple, HBO, like, the really amazing original content is coming out of streaming, and I'm so glad to see that it's Channing. So, fun fact, another reason that I love Channing, and then another reason I love all these original programming. Another reason I love all this original programming that's coming out of Netflix right now. Okay, back to the originally scheduled programming. I really enjoy the shows that are on ABC. And this is the show that, it's not a new one by any means, and I was not interested in watching it at all, but I can't remember, there was something that happened, and I just kind of, it piqued my interest, and so this was one that I binged, like hardcore binged, back in December, and this is called Designated Survivor. And the reason it got me interested is because of the premise of the show. Basically, this is true. So what happens at the show is that this one guy, his name is Tom Kirkman, he is the HUD secretary, or the Housing and Urban Development Secretary, who's kind of the low man on the totem pole. It turns out he had actually been fired, like, earlier that day. Basically, he'd been asked to step down and no longer be on the president's cabinet anymore. So it was kind of a, we don't want you at this event because we don't like you, you're fired. He's not a politician, he is a university professor, he's an independent, he's not even affiliated with any political party. He is set to be the designated survivor. And there is a catastrophic terrorist attack in which the Capitol building is blown up and everyone dies. And basically he's left, he's president. He becomes president because he was a designated survivor. Maggie Q is in it. She plays an FBI agent who is trying to track down the terrorists. In season 2, you get to meet this other character. Well, you see him a little bit in season 1, but Jake Epstein plays a character. His name is Chuck. He's fantastic. I love Jake Epstein. Also was watching Degrassi, but that's not on Netflix, so we're not gonna talk about that. So the first 2 seasons were on ABC network drama. It was canceled, and then Netflix picked it up for a 3rd season, which I think it's a really interesting tonal shift that happens between seasons 2 and season 3, but I still think that the quality was right up there. And season 3, they get a lot more political. I think there's a lot more that speaks to kind of the time period in which we are in. So it feels very relevant. I don't think enough people talk about Designated Survivor, and it's so good. I really like it. Another show that I recently watched and blew through because it was so good. I can't even tell you. I've watched a lot of great television shows, but this one made me stop, and I was like, this is probably one of the best things I have seen in a very long time. So this is the show Sex Education. It is in another Netflix original, but it's set in England, and it follows this guy Otis Milburn. He is played by Asa Butterfield, and he is the son of a sex therapist. His mom is also great, and he starts giving like sex advice and being a sex therapist for his high school friends. It is hilarious.
What are you doing here?
I didn't want to go home. Why'd you throw shit at me?
I'm angry.
My absolute favorite character is Otis's best friend. His name is Eric Effiong. He is iconic. He is amazing.
You should wash your hands, you dirty pig.
He's what I want to be. Eric Effiong is just fantastic. So it is very funny. It's very lighthearted. There's a lot of, ridiculous situations that everyone gets in. I think there's a lot of visual comedy. There's a lot of, it's well written. It's snappy. The dialogue flows. But the show has a lot of heart. People go through a lot of really serious things in their lives. Eric is so full of joy and so full of life, but then something happens to him that kind of takes his spark away, and he has to go through a whole journey in the first season to find his way back. In the second season, there's this one girl, Amy, who's, again, just a joy, so sweet and kind. She's sexually assaulted, on a bus.
Ames, why are you crying?
Because I can't get on the bus.
Ames, it's okay. It's okay.
It takes the rest of the season for her to actually be able to get back on the bus. She hasn't been able to get over that experience. It's actually a very large cast of characters, of supporting characters. Even if you don't see a lot of them on screen for a lot of time, there's great moments. And when I think the filmmakers did a good job of being very judicious and being very smart, because every time you see a character on screen, I think it brings something new and it adds to that character's development, because it doesn't feel like there's really, the characters that you do see, they don't feel underdeveloped. They feel important. They feel well-rounded. Like they have heart and they have soul and depth to them, which I think is really, really great.
Please, can we be friends again? Okay. Let's be mates. Move that.
But it is funny. It's really funny. Like I said, it has heart and soul, but it's hilarious. So definitely, if you haven't checked out Sex Education, give it a watch. It's so good. It's good. So another show that I am currently in the middle of watching, I blew through season 1 and I'm about halfway through season 2, is called Good Girls. So this is actually an NBC show. So seasons 1 and 2 are on Netflix, so you can binge through those. And then season 3 is currently on Hulu. It follows 3, moms. I wouldn't say they're all housewives. They all have different problems. They have different scenarios in their lives. One lady found out her husband was cheating on her and had basically lost their house. Another one, they're working really hard, working class people, but their daughter is severely sick and they have medical bills. So these 3 moms, out of desperation, decide to hold up a grocery store where one of the moms works. And from there, a whole world of criminal underworld opens up to them, and they just keep getting in farther and farther and deeper, and it's just really interesting. It's fun. I love the characters. I think they're all really well played. There is some humor.
How's Tuesday?
Sarah has a doctor's appointment.
Well, Wednesday I have Sadie. Thursday? Wanna whip out your iCal or?
Rio. The lead gangster villain guy. Wow.
What has gotten into you?
Gang friend.
How was it?
He's a character. That is, I just love that character. Rio is just, he's great. The whole show is great. I love it. So definitely check out Good Girls. If you enjoy crime shows, if you enjoy videos about people who kind of get in over their heads and have to find their way out, I would also recommend Ozark. Ozark is a little bit more of a slow burn, but I do really enjoy it. So basically Ozark, the 3rd season was just released on Netflix, I think last week. Pretty sure, so I haven't watched it yet. So update, I finished watching season 3 now, and season 3 is Laura Linney's season. Oh my goodness. She is a powerhouse in season 3. So good. Her sweet spot, I guess, is being like a sister to a brother who has some issues, kind of like her character in Love Actually, but this time with a twist, because it's Ozark, it's gonna get dark. Let me warn you, it's going to get very, very dark, but Laura Linney is a force to be reckoned with in season 3, and it is awesome to see her in that role. It really, really is so good. So it's about this guy. His name is Marty Bird, who's played by Jason Bateman. Marty is a super, super smart hedge fund manager. So he and his partner run this hedge fund. Well, they also launder money for a cartel. Well, the partner, he got a little greedy and started skimming money from the cartel. Marty, of course, didn't know this because Marty is, he's an upstanding guy. He's a criminal. He launders money, but he was not stealing, the partner was stealing, and Marty did not know this. So, cartel finds out, they're not happy, they get rid of everybody, and they're gonna kill Marty and his family, and Marty convinces them that he can move to the Ozarks, the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, and he can start a bunch of businesses and launder all of their money for them. And so he picks up, moves his whole family to the Ozarks, gets more involved in criminal activities because like the more he does to launder the money, the more he starts catching the attention of like other criminals who are already in the Ozarks, and he has to just basically, it's kind of like a rush to try to survive and not be killed. But on top of all of that, he has his family, his wife, and his 2 kids who move there with him, so there's a lot of like family drama that's happening on the side of him trying not to get everyone killed by the cartel. So Ozark, very highly acclaimed, would recommend, is a great watch. We're back to a couple documentaries. Like I said, I've been really getting into documentaries recently, and so I watched Broken. And there's one season of that. There are 4 episodes. I started watching it because everyone was talking about the makeup episode, all about counterfeit makeup, which was fascinating. There's also an episode on vaping and big vape industry, one about deadly dressers, and then it also kind of gets into the whole like fast furniture movement and deforestation that is happening. I really like IKEA, but it's not actually the best company, which I know, shocking that these big international corporations aren't great. I mean, it's surprising, right? And then recycling. Yeah, the last episode is called Recycling Sham, which was heartbreaking. There's just so much plastic. So much plastic in the world. Like, yeah. I don't even know. There's not like a silver lining to any of these episodes. Like, it's just, there's horrible stuff. Like, we have destroyed the earth. So none of these are particularly happy. There's nothing really uplifting about any of these episodes, but very informative. I feel a better person having watched it, that I now know more and can speak a little bit, hopefully, intellectually about some of these topics, just because I didn't know about these things. But a really good documentary. Another one that is also, sorry, I'm falling off my chair. Another documentary that is similar. So this is a bonus. I'm not counting this as a separate entry because I've only watched 1 episode. So Dirty Money is another documentary. There are 2 seasons. The 2nd season was just recently released. There are more episodes in Dirty Money than there are in Broken, but they feel very similar, so I'm bundling them all together. If you want to be socially informed but not necessarily uplifted or feel happy, watch Broken or Dirty Money. I recommend both highly. Another documentary, I actually started watching an episode of this in one of my classes in grad school. It was in my streaming class, and kind of was like, this is interesting, this is wild, this is crazy, but I never got back around to it until recently. Like I said, I've been getting on this documentary train, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna revisit Wild Wild Country is the name of the documentary. If you think that Doc Antel from Tiger King is interesting, he's the guy who has like the 3 wives, is like has like a yoga tiger cult. So if you think he's kind of an interesting side character from Tiger King, you would definitely enjoy Wild Wild Country, which is, this documentary also is just filled with so many twists and turns. Every episode just gets more and more crazy and more wild. Basically follows this religion. A lot of people would say religion. A lot of people would say movement. Some other people would say cult. This guru, his name is Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and his organization that he starts called the Rajneeshis. Yeah, that's what they call themselves, the Rajneeshis. And they kind of get run out of India, and so they move to the United States and they buy up this huge ranch in Central Oregon. They have this huge ranch, and they basically create their own town. It's called Rajneeshpuram, and his like the Bhagwan's, secretary, her name is Sheila. She's really interesting.
You tell your governors, you tell your attorney general, and all your bigoted pigs outside, they touch any of our people, I will have 15 of their heads, and I mean business.
The townspeople who lived near this ranch were not happy. And so it was kind of like interesting how the Rajneesh were able to use their power through numbers to kind of gain political power. They end up taking over this other town.
I want that guru and his evil influence out of my city.
They're run by satanic power.
There is talk of vigilantes who may seek revenge on the Rajneeshis.
And then just wild things start to happen. There are drugs, there are cult-like activities, there's political intrigue, there is, I think there's drugs. I mentioned drugs? There's drugs. There's drugs, and there's like immigration fraud. It's just, there's a bunch of stuff, and it just, like I said, as the story unfolds, it gets more and more crazy.
The Rajneeshis came this close to murdering a presidential appointee.
Definitely give Wild Wild Country a watch. It's fascinating. Fascinating. I asked my parents if they remembered, because it was all taking place in the early 80s, so obviously long before I was even born. And so I asked them, like, had you ever heard of this? And my mom was like, no, I never heard of it. And then I asked my dad, did you ever hear about, like, the Rajneesh people? And he was like, oh yeah, the free love, like, cult. And it was a big thing. It got a lot of news coverage at the time, so interesting. Interesting. Okay, totally switching gears from Rajneesh, cults, tigers, all that stuff. We're gonna talk about Outlander. So I really like historical fiction. I also really like romance, and I like historical fiction romances. I like them all. So Outlander is, of course, based on the book series by Dana Galdebron. It's hugely popular, and it basically follows this lady. Her name is Claire. It's right after World War II, and she and her husband are on a second honeymoon in the north of Scotland. So they are British, but they're in Scotland, and she comes across these stones. So it's kind of like Stonehenge, a stone circle. It's very mystical. And she hears like whispering, and she touches the stones and is magically transported back in time to the 1740s. And the 1740s was at the height of like what you would call the Jacobite Revolution. So Scotland for years, including now, after post-Brexit, Scotland is once again talking about having their independence and wanting to go back to being a part of the European Union. But for years and years and centuries, Scotland has wanted to be an independent country. It was an independent country, actually. There's a lot. I mean, there was a lot. Many wars were fought between Scotland and England. So there's tension. And during the 1740s, it basically is during the time of Bonnie Prince Charles. They say he's going to return to Scotland and free Scotland, and it's once again going to be a independent country. And so there are these rebels who are called Jacobites who are basically fighting the British, the Redcoats, during this time. And so Claire, a British woman from the 1940s, she's also a nurse, gets dropped in the middle of all of this conflict. And while she's back in time, she meets her soulmate, the love of her life, who is a Jacobite rebel named James Fraser. So it's love, it's romance, it's historical drama, it's a little bit of science fiction with the time traveling. It's really interesting. I love it. I think Outlander would probably be a little bit more of a guilty pleasure for me, but I do enjoy it. I think the storytelling is great. The filming is beautiful, and the costumes are just like to die for. Like, I love historical fiction, so it's spot on, really good. And then another show that I don't know why, I just threw it in here because I was like browsing through my Netflix history, and I watched this show when I was an undergraduate, so 5 years ago at this point. It's called The Borgias.
So, as I literally just said, I have no idea why I included The Borgias on my list. I like it well enough when I watched it, but it wasn't one of my favorite shows. I like that it is a historical drama. I like all the political drama, and I like all the drama. I'm just saying, before there was Jamie and Cersei, there was Lucrezia and Cesare. Anyways, I have no idea why I was such an idiot and included this show when Netflix has one of my all-time favorite shows, which brings me so much joy to watch. I am just a dunce for overlooking it the first time, but I would be totally remiss if I did not talk about Somebody Feed Phil. Oh, What can I even say about Somebody Feed Phil? This show is just full of joy. And I'm normally not really much of a travel or food show kind of person, but Phil Rosenthal just has so much genuine excitement that it just exudes from the screen. I love this show, and I love Phil.
I heard after she had that sandwich, she changed the song to My Heart Will Not Go On.
Okay, enough gushing. What is the show even about? So Phil Rosenthal is a comedy writer and the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond, and he travels around the world and eats a lot of food and meets a lot of people, and this is the show about it. The people that Phil meet are also really wonderful, like his wife Monica, or the Skype calls with his parents.
Your hair looks beautiful. I was talking to Dad.
This show is fantastic, people. And if you don't take my word for it, listen to Phil.
This is fantastic, people. It's so good.
Next, we're going to talk about American Crime Story. There are 2 seasons, and it's an anthology. The first season is The People versus O.J. Simpson, and the second season is the assassination of Gianni Versace. So both of those, of course, are historical dramas that take place in, it's 90s, so, more recent historical dramas, but historical nonetheless. I think they are so well done. Fantastic. All of the actors in The People versus O.J. Simpson, a lot of them really look like the characters they play, which is so interesting. And it basically covers the story of O.J. Simpson and the trial. The entire series is just based on the trial. I started watching it because in the terrible documentary class I took over the summer in grad school, we watched the entire 8-9 hour documentary series, which if you really want a deep dive, full background on OJ, on his career, on the political, on the cultural, societal stuff that happens leading up to the trial, if you have time and you're interested, it's worth a watch. But I kind of got interested because we watched that whole thing, and then I was like, wait, there's a dramatized version of it as well on Netflix, so I started watching it. I think it's really well acted and portrayed, and the costumes and the cars. And I think it's also interesting that they chose to put the young Kardashians in the show. Because of course, Robert Kardashian became famous because he was one of OJ's lawyers. He was also friends with OJ. He famously took OJ's side. They also have an actress play Kris Kardashian, Kris Jenner, who of course took Nicole's side. They threw the kids in. I think it was interesting, culturally, that they would choose to do that because, I don't know, whatever, Kardashians are a thing. They weren't in 1994, but now they're a thing, so they threw them in. And then the second season, which again is an anthology, is about the assassination of Gianni Versace. So, of course, Darren Criss's performance as Andrew Cunanan, who is the killer, was phenomenal. It was really, really great.
So what brings you to Miami?
I know people.
Oh, yeah?
Versace.
And I personally really like the storytelling device that they chose to take in this series. And so basically how the producers, I guess Ryan Murphy, he's the creator, chose to portray this assassination is because Gianni Versace was actually the last murder in what was a crime spree for Andrew Cunanan. And so what ends up happening is they decide to tell this show and present the series in reverse chronological order. So it starts out in the first episode with Gianni Versace being killed, but then in every other episode it kind of goes backwards, leading to that moment of Andrew Cunanan killing Gianni Versace. And so it's really, really great framing. The characters are really great. Penelope Cruz plays Donatella Versace. Ricky Martin is Gianni Versace's lover. It's really, really, all the characters are fantastic. The clothes, it's Versace, are beautiful. And again, it's a really great, I think the killing takes place in the mid-90s, but then like I said, it goes backwards in time, so it gets up to the early to mid-80s or so, because it does jump around in time. The main storyline goes reverse chronologically, but then there are flashbacks to even earlier than the main storyline. So I think it's really, really great. Well done, excellent, would recommend. And then finally, last but not least, and there's no reason, I'm not saying that this is the best. I'm saving the best for last. I'm not saving the worst for last. It's just, on my list of 20 shows that I wanted to talk about that actually turned out being more than 20 shows, I wanted to talk about Dexter. Yeah, Dexter. Dexter is a really interesting one. I watched this show a number of years ago, and it has stayed with me as one of the shows that I really enjoyed. Also was kind of I have this weird sort of like fascination with serial killers. Like I just mentioned, you know, Andrew Cunanan, who went on this like killing spree. I don't know what it is. I'm very interested and fascinated by and terrified by this idea of like serial killers. Just throwing in another show, Mindhunter, which is another Netflix original, stars Jonathan Groff, and it's like a true story. Check it out if you enjoy serial killery stuff. It's 2 seasons, quick watch. Really good, really creepy, but really good. Anyways, what was I talking about? Dexter. It stars Michael C. Hall, and he plays Dexter, who is a crime scene investigator who investigates murders, but also in his spare time is a serial killer. Yeah. Dexter, the main character that you like love, is a serial killer. Also, his dad was a cop, his sister is a cop, and there is a serial killer of the season. Fascinating, right? Oh my gosh. So what you find out throughout the first season is that Dexter, for all appearances, is a mild-mannered, very smart, but, you know, quiet, unobtrusive, normal guy. Well, that's not really true, because it turns out Dexter was actually adopted and had a lot of trauma in his life. You know, they actually get a lot into the psychology of what makes a killer, what makes a serial killer. And turns out that after he was adopted, his dad, his adopted father, who was a homicide detective, started to recognize some of these traits of a serial killer in his adopted son. And so the dad ends up teaching Dexter all of these rules of how to kill and let his serial killer tendencies out without being caught, and also by not killing good people, innocent people. And so what Dexter ends up doing is he kills other killers. So he works in the police department as a crime scene investigator, and then he goes after these bad guys like from his work and ends up killing them. Which is just such a weird, interesting, I like things that have like kind of weird concepts to the show. And then of course, you know, the serial killer of the season comes along and starts terrorizing. Like Miami has so many serial killers apparently, who knew? But they keep coming up with all these other serial killers that then the police, and then, you know, Dexter's sister, who's on the police force, has to try to, with the help of Dexter, track down and also, you know, take down the serial killers, but without Dexter being caught. Because we like Dexter. He's the good guy. We don't want Dexter to be caught. Yeah, really interesting show. But if you do end up watching it, just promise me that you're not going to watch the last episode. Just don't do it. I think it's pretty universally agreed that the last episode of Dexter doesn't add anything to the show. It's like one of the worst television endings of all time. I know some people like it, but I personally I don't think it adds anything to the show. It was a horrible way to end the series, not just an episode, like a season finale. No. Wonderful show, really well done, super interesting, kind of creepy, but exciting, and all those things. Up until the last episode, just don't watch it. It'll be great. You'll love Dexter. Okay, that was a lot. I am so glad I broke this up into multiple videos. So these were all my recommendations, the 20 plus things that I love from Netflix. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. That would be awesome. I hope these recommendations, I hope you enjoy them. If you did, if you've watched any of these shows, if you really like any of these shows, or if you have recommendations from me, let me know. Put them in the description box. I love talking about TV. It's one of my favorite things to do of all time, so definitely let me know. If you want to see a part 2 to this, if you want to see my other recommendations, be sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss that. I also have a lot of other fun videos planned that are coming out very soon. Anyways, thank you so very much for spending part of your day with me. I hope you are doing well, or as well as can be expected, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!